The ratings are down the toilet. Triple H is that big turd that just refuses to flush and is stinking out the joint, and I guess that makes TKO and Dwayne Johnson the toilet bowl because those are the ones facilitating this crap. Welcome back, guys, to Fog Wrestling. We all know the ratings are bad, but now we're going to deep dive into them, see just how bad things actually are in the first half of 2025.
Well, let me tell you something, brother. We all know they're bad, right? But it's actually intriguing to look at these stats and properly dive into them because I actually thought we couldn't actually look at these. But lo and behold, we can.
Thanks to the good men at WrestleNomics, or should I say the good man at WrestleNomics, he has released the global views for WWE content from January 1st to June 30th. And this includes all premium live events, all SmackDowns, all Raws, NXT, and NXT premium live events as well. So yeah, with that said, we're just going to get straight into it now. Obviously, premium live events are only watched internationally, so obviously in America the premium live events are shown on Peacock, so those numbers won't really be reflected here. So Royal Rumble 2025 did 3 million viewers, Elimination Chamber 1.9, WrestleMania Night 1, 2.4, WrestleMania Night 2, 2.8, Backlash 1.5, the Money in the Bank 1.6, and Night of Champions 1 million. Now, the Royal Rumble has the highest amount of views, and you could certainly argue that that is the one that happened earliest, so therefore it's been up longer, and it's been able to accumulate more views than all the rest. But I'm still surprised that the Royal Rumble has got more views than WrestleMania. Now, some people say the Royal Rumble is their favourite premium live event because of the Royal Rumble match itself, but I am surprised that the Royal Rumble has more views than WrestleMania, even if it was uploaded, 10 weeks before?
Yeah, but growing up, man, I loved the Rumble. I always preferred Rumble to Mania. Do I still do that? Well, I don't really like wrestling anymore, but the Royal Rumble, it still feels... it's like the closest thing I think the match you can get to actually still feeling like the old days for me. See when you start counting down for 10, 9, you think, oh fuck, who's going to come out? There's something about it, and it always brings like old faces back. See with Mania, the card's already laid out. You know what you're kind of going to get. With the Rumble, there's always that element about surprise. So if there was one pay-per-view for me to beat WrestleMania in viewership, it's always going to be the Rumble.
Yeah, now people might turn around and say these are good numbers, or these are very good numbers. But I would actually argue that the Royal Rumble, yeah, 3 million people watched it, but you've had 5 months to accumulate the views. Like back in the day when they took into consideration buy rates, it was people that bought the pay-per-view and were watching it live. You've had 3 million people have had 5 months to watch the Royal Rumble. Plus, another big important factor is these pay-per-views back in the day were costing like $50. Everything here's free if you have a Netflix account.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, nobody gets a Netflix account to watch WWE. Nobody buys a Netflix account to watch WWE. Netflix is something that you have, and WWE just happens to be on it. So you can say these numbers are good or whatnot, but at the end of the day, there is a long time to accumulate the views, and it's free to access. It's not like back in the day when you actually had to pay top dollar to get the pay-per-views.
What I would like to see is actually ratings regarding old pay-per-views. I'd be very intrigued to see, I would love to see a graphic for WrestleMania 1 up to WrestleMania 41 to see what the viewerships have showed since the start of the year, since Netflix has existed. But I think another worrying thing for me is look at Night of Champions, right? I know it's the most recent one.
Yeah, but you say Netflix, it's really irrelevant because for about a decade now, at least more than a decade, the premium live events have been on the network.
Yeah, I know, but I would still like to see what years and what manias would have done the best compared to the others. I'd be interested to see what episodes of Raw have been feud.
I'm pretty sure that WrestleMania 28 was massive because of Cena and Rock.
No, but I'm not talking about what it did at the time. I'm talking about what it does this year. Like how many views it's got this year.
On Netflix?
Yes. I'd like to see that.
I would imagine the further back you go, the less views it would have because a lot of people just aren't really interested in old stuff, but... my opinion.
See Night of Champions, right? Most recent, so I understand that. But this was the pay-per-view, right, that was on the best time for an international audience. If you think of Europe, you think of the Middle East, you think of Australia, right? Is that not shocking that they've only got 1 million views for that? And we could say it's the most recent, right? I'm not buying there's a 500,600,000 difference just due to the fact is it's took place recently. Who's actually going out of their way to rewatch Night of Champions and Money in the Bank weeks after they've happened? No one is, man.
Well, this is up to June 30th, and that did happen on June 28th. So they only had a couple of days to accumulate 1 million views.
Yeah, but are we right? You know what? A couple of days, I'll accept that. But are we going to sit here and honestly say that the Royal Rumble's massively benefiting compared to like the Chamber and Mania when it comes to rewatch value in terms of like, oh, it's had more time up there? I just don't see it. No. Honestly, man, I feel like if you're a wrestling fan in 2025, if you're going to watch a pay-per-view, you're going to do it a couple of days removed from it. You're not going to do it months removed from it.
Yeah, months is like a nostalgia thing, and you just don't have nostalgia after a month.
Like, I've never watched WrestleMania 40 Night 2. I'll tell you what, with each passing day away from it, the less chances of me watching it increase. You know?
Yeah, if I'm going to watch a WrestleMania, it'll be a good WrestleMania. It's not going to be anything recent. What your final thoughts on these premium live event numbers? When you first look at them, I think they look pretty good. But when you factor in that you've got like some of like the Royal Rumble, for example, we've had 5 months to watch that, and it's free, and it's the entire world outside of America. I mean, how good are these numbers really?
Yeah, I mean, you compare them to the Raw numbers, which include everybody. It's like Raw's getting what we're talking about the 2.6 million, but that's including America as well. On top of it, you got to look at the massive decrease since WrestleMania. I mean, from Mania back to the Rumble, you're looking at 2.8, 2.4, 1.93. So you're probably looking at about an average there, about what? 2.4 is probably bang about right. And then after Mania, man, you're looking at 1.5, 1.6, 1 million. To me, that coincides with the Raw ratings. They're losing viewership across the board, and it's just, the hype's just no there, man. See, for the first couple of months of Netflix, yeah, you know what, it was shit, but you still had a lot of things up in the air. It's Mania season, it's John Cena's last Mania, that's going to draw, but I think in the months that have passed, people have just realised that Triple H does not have a Scooby.
Outside of the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, for the other premium live events, roughly the same amount of people watching them as the same amount of people watching Raw. Once you factor in the US viewership, is pretty much the same.
Yeah. Again, you would expect PLEs to be viewed more, though, than Raw. It's not like back in the day, Raw's getting 8 million views, but then you all have to pay $50 for a pay-per-view, as you pointed out. It's for free. So, I would say, more than ever, there's a more chance of you watching a pay-per-view than an episode of Raw. Just due to the fact they're the same price.
Absolutely. And nothing really happens on Raw, at least with the premium live events, you're supposedly getting good stuff,
yeah,
title matches.
So these numbers, right, they may look good, right, as you pointed out, but when you actually think of it, the same amount of people have access to the PLEs now that they do to Raws, apart from if you take the US market out. But I mean, look at some of these numbers, man.
Yeah, now, of course, these numbers have went up because people have watched them after the first week. So when we first announced these numbers, I believe the January Netflix Raw was 5.9.
Yep.
But that was after a week. So now there's been almost 6 months to watch this.
So 1 million people have watched it.
1 million people have watched this. And I think for the premiere, I can see 1 million. But the further you get away from the premiere, you're not going to get anywhere close to 1 million.
No, maybe the night after Mania, people want to check that out a few months down the line. Or
well, I'm pretty
cosmic events.
I'm pretty sure the second episode was that not like a 3.7.
Yep.
So there you see
you're going to lose more people.
So 700k, and yeah. So the further you get away from like the first couple of weeks, the viewership's barely going to go up because people will watch the Raw premiere again, or people might not have watched it, but maybe a month later they'll be like, oh, I'm going to actually see if that was any good.
As shit as it was, it's a standout episode.
Yeah, whereas nobody's going to check out, oh, I'm going to see what the 14th episode of the Raw Netflix era was. No one remembers, nobody cares. No. So, I mean, you're looking at these numbers here and they're slightly up on when they were previously announced, but I mean, it is what it is. Well, I mean, that Raw was on. Well, that's actually a good example. That Raw was done. That would go. They reckon that is roughly around the live viewership, and this chart was calculated after the day after Raw. So that would actually prove that the amount of people watching Raw live is at most 1.4 million. But if you factor in the extra few hours that Netflix would be up for after Raw finished, I reckon
that just tells me if you took it the international audience, and just factor in the USA network, well, not the USA network, but the US viewers that they used to just get, how much lower is the Netflix rating in the US compared to what it used to be on USA network?
Let's figure that out. So
SmackDown
we go to SmackDown, right? And SmackDown is just internationally, so this isn't factoring in America. And alright, you've got some 700Ks, but the majority of these are 900, 1 million. So let's just go for the nice round sum. Let's say 1 million viewers, right? That's the international people that are watching SmackDown. If you factor that in and then take 1 million off of the Raw rating, then because if we assume that 1 million people internationally are watching SmackDown, it is fair to assume that roughly 1 million people internationally are watching Raw. So the latest Raw was 2.6. You take 1 million off that leaves you 1.6. That's 1.6 million people that have watched Raw in America over that 7-day period when Raw got released. But out of that 1.6 million, how many people watched Raw later in the week and didn't watch it live due to other commitments or something better being on TV? So at the most, that would assume that you've got about 1.6 million at the absolute most watching Raw live. But we know that how many people in that 1.6 million are going to be watching it later in the week? I mean, the last rating showed that that's the cutoff, June. So that showed that in one day, 1.4 million people watched Raw.
And to further
but that doesn't necessarily mean 1.4 million people watched it live. It just means 1.4 million people watched it on Monday.
And to further back that up, folks, right, what you got to look at as well, if you take the average SmackDown rating on the USA Network and add the international one on Netflix, it probably gets to you about 2.6. Just as Raw would be on Netflix, in the same ballpark. So it just goes to show you, man, what the WWE's getting internationally for every show combined, they can't even beat what they used to do on a Monday night.
You know, it's garbage. So, that's those ratings there. Even the latest SmackDown got 600K, which tells you that internationally people aren't really watching. I mean, they've had 3 days to watch it because this was cut off on June 30th. So even 3 days after, they're still approximately 300K down. So that does show you that people would watch it later in the week. Now that comes out on a Friday. Or maybe people got better things to do on the weekend than sit and watch SmackDown.
Maybe it's a Monday hangover cure, man. I'm not too sure.
Maybe a lot of people are watching SmackDown before Raw comes on.
I can't believe people would do that.
Maybe they want 5.5 hours of WWE action.
I could not think anything worse than sitting down a couple of days after one of these aired and watching it in full.
Alright, NXT Premium Live Events. So the best one was New Year's Evil, January 7th, 500K. Vengeance Day got 200K. Roadblock, 300K. Stand and Deliver, 200K. And Battleground, 200K.
Any surprise the one with The Rock on it drew the most?
No, definitely not. And again, these numbers are really poor. I mean, these are international numbers. These are premium live events. That's shocking.
That is shocking, but it just shows you the power of Dwayne.
It's free. It's not free.
I know it's for free. You know, you're bang on the money. Yo, no, remember, I can't even remember what we were talking about. We were talking about, imagine, like, if NXT were having to, like, you know, do pay-per-views, what would their buy rate be? But look at this, they're getting 200K, right?
Imagine you had to pay $50 for this, fucking...
I don't think 2,000 people would fucking buy it.
Probably not.
That's had hundreds of it.
And then we go to NXT, and Jesus Christ.
No, this tells me, it kind of tells me that, like, the Netflix, rating system isn't really built for this low viewership. Cause
it gives you
blocks at 100K.
Yeah, well that must be that is kind of how they do it. When they do the Raw rating, they give you 2.5, 2.6.
Yeah, so what
2.7, 2.8.
So what happens? So some of these NXTs could be under 100K, theoretically.
They could be. And I'm assuming all the 200K one. I'm assuming there's been no NXT closer to 300K than 200K.
Yeah.
Or else it would say 300K. So it just showed like the people that are watching NXT internationally over the 7-day period, pretty much non-existent.
Incredible, folks, but I can't say I'm surprised. Look at NXT. No, actually, look at NXT. I think that's the proof's in the pudding there. A whole block of 200K, and see if you scroll down, a lot more 100Ks coming through. Look at that.
Yep.
So,
but we have seen NXT ratings begin to decline.
Yeah.
On the CW
and shit like
the
that,
CW network. So if it's declining on the CW network, if the American viewers are beginning to tune out, then why wouldn't the international viewers begin to tune out as well?
Yeah, folks, I'll never watch NXT again. There's probably thousands of people like me. It's shit, pal.
Many people do you think are watching Raw right now, live on a Monday night? I think based on what we've seen here, and based on the Smackdown numbers, and the 1.4 that they got for the Monday, I would say live, I'm thinking around 1.2 million on a good week.
US?
Aye.
I'd say around
I'd say that's the concurrent amount of viewers watching Netflix live. And can you imagine how lower these numbers are going to be when NFL season comes into play? Because, like, see with how easier it is to watch Raw now on delay than it would be without Netflix.
Did Meltzer not say they were doing about 900,000 live?
Yeah, and Meltzer said 900. Maybe Meltzer could be right? Maybe he's closer than we are. But I'm being generous. If I had to say at the most, I'd say Raw's doing about 1.2 million live concurrent viewers. At the most.
No, I'd agree with that. I would. It's just a shit, I mean,
but
honestly.
But what are they going to do in September when the Monday Night Football starts back?
Pray to God.
Because with Raw being so easy to watch now on Netflix, are people see people that previously had to choose, but you can DVR. Yeah, but it's just... it's easier on Netflix to watch things that aren't live. So therefore, are more people not going to choose football going forward than ever before?
No, there should be. Because just look at the state of these numbers. By the way, they're only going to get worse. There's no getting better. See when you factor in like the guys, Roman Reigns, he's getting more part-time. No time. Cena's done at the end of this year. See how many years is CM Punk going to give you? Cody Rhodes into his 40s.
It'd be interesting to see what the numbers look in 2026.
I'd be interested to see what the numbers look like in fucking 2035 or something, man. Probably be off Netflix.
Zero K. Anyway, guys, there's your numbers breakdown. What did we learn for this? Well, nothing that we didn't already know. Numbers are shite. Till next time. Peace.